السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله ذي الملك والملكوت ذي العزة والجبروت. الحمد لله حي قيوم لا ينام، عزيز لا يضام، قهار لا يرام. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. يقول الباري سبحانه وتعالى بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. O you believe, fear Allah as He should be feared, and die not except on the state of Islam. For may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most merciful, grant us and bestow upon us the greatest of the gift to die on the state of Islam. Allahumma ameen, Ya Rabbal Alameen. Toward the end of Surah Yunus, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying to His Prophet to address to the humankind, saying, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: قل يا أيها الناس إن كنتم في شك من ديني فلا أعبد الذين تعبدون من دون الله. Say, O humankind, if you are in doubt of my way, of my religion, of my message, know that I do not worship those you do worship. ولكن أعبد الله but I worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, الَّذِي يَتَوَفَّاكُمْ, the one who caused you to die. And it's so profound in this ayah that has two aspects important. Talk first about the doubt. Because if you are doubting the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to His Prophet to address them, to tell them, I worship only Allah. But one of the attributes that the Prophet ﷺ has been, taught to say, which is actually in the Quran, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala attribute to cause to die and the one who gives the life. And amazingly, when anyone who listens to this ayah, he will know that Muhammad ﷺ is saying the truth. Because the question is, who really control death? You cannot control death, as you know, and you cannot control life, as you know, and you cannot control resurrection if those who believe if there is resurrection. Then here there is an aspect very important in the life of the believer, because when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressing to the humankind, we are included in the humankind. We're not like specifically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when He addressed the believer say, oh, you believe. But when He addressed to an-nas, we are part of the nas. Therefore, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestow upon you the gift of the belief, it does not mean that you just, when you listen to this ayah, should not concern you. But it concerns us, and in a very profound way. So when I say someone he's in shak, he has doubt about the deen. The doubt about the deen is either to not believe in the deen, or there's aspect in one's relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when seeking and following Allah's will. Many people are not getting what they are asking for, supplicating Allah, invoking, requesting, inquiring, begging, but they're not getting it. And this is, subhanAllah, it caused kind of a doubt in the heart. And this doubt is not the doubt in the fundamental of the deen, but in the relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is like, I have been forgotten, and this is what the shaitan will be whispering and casting in the heart of a person. What it leads to when someone is not getting what they ask for, it leads to a type of doubt in the heart. And the type of doubt in the heart makes someone hesitating in many of their worship, hesitating even if to continue make the dua, and make a person kind of turning away, but not in avoiding many aspects of the ibadah, because he feels somehow that is not helping them. And that is actually the doubt. So when here in the Prophet ﷺ in the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained him to say, if you are in doubt of my deen, then no, I only worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who caused you to die. And then Allah who caused you to die should invite the believer to reflect that what is needed here is yaqeen, is certainty. However, when you look at this ayah closely, the certainty that is required here, which comes to oppose the shak, it has different levels, as the doubt has different levels. But for us as a believer, many of us, we have this aspect of hesitation, this aspect of doubt, not doubt in the fundamental of the way of the religion, but doubt in sometimes, why Allah guides whom He will, why Allah does the thing, and we keep it very hidden with due respect and holding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in very high esteem. People, some of them keep it hidden in their heart. They don't want to disclose it, but it's bothering. And other they will argue, other they dispute, other they only actually change their way. But the most noxious thing that is caused by this aspect is for someone to be heedless and turning away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, when we try to reflect on such matters, we need to understand that the yaqeen, which opposes the doubt, it is necessary for the belief. So it goes side to side with the submission to Allah, as it is a condition to the submission to Allah. And this is, many people, subhanAllah, they have the concept and the understanding that yaqeen is something reserved to the very high level of believers, to arifeen, and high level of salihin, righteous, and high level of muqarrabeen foremost. So the yaqeen is kind of something, is not for us, the normal people, for some high people. No, the yaqeen indeed is a condition for Islam. The yaqeen is a condition to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it concerns us all. If not, if you do not strive and work and have the drive toward building the yaqeen, therefore we're going to be like filled with doubt inside that is really rattling, inside our heart and really corrupting many of our action and also corrupting our path. So this is a fact, this is a reality. Many people might not be, I will not say aware, but not thinking about it. But if you look down to closely to yourself, the way how you make dua, why you start making dua, or many aspects in our life, you'll find like there is many aspects of doubt into our heart. Not a doubt that take you out for of Islam, not a doubt that they reject, the message of Allah, but is a doubt that not keeping you persevering on the path, and it might be a risk for a person to delude them and misguide them from the path. Now, considering this aspect that we would like to share with you today, that the yaqeen is not an option. The yaqeen is a requirement. Is a requirement for what? Is a requirement to be closer to Allah. Is a requirement to be able truly to believe and to complete our submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For this reason, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said from the beginning of the Quran, when He describing the believer, قَالَ الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. This is the first thing, that they believe in the unseen. And in the end of the ayat, before He said, أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ عَلَى هُدًى مِّن رَبِّهِمْ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ قَالَ وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِن قَبْلِكَ وَبِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ. And they are toward the belief of the hereafter in full certitude. So they have certainty in the belief of the akhirah. So this certainty, this type of certainty, that's what we need. Because this type of certainty, what we'll have into your life, it truly changes your life. First, this type of certainty, when you elevate the belief in Allah, when you elevate the meeting of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as certain, as you're seeing the sun outside, or you're seeing the light outside, or the fact that we speak and we are speaking, that subhanallah make to change your life. What has an impact? The first impact is really expand your chest, put tranquility into your heart, increase your willpower to travel in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those are a fact. Those are a fact. That's the yaqeen. And the yaqeen help you then to transcend to a level that you will be having the complete submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're not going to be doubting about the hukum or doubting about any aspect in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, but you have a complete submission to Allah in a way that you look everything through the way of Allah. You make luju when in everything that you have to examine, to explore, to do, to decide, you turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then if you have anything that you want to turn to flee to, you flee to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَيَنْظُرُ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ بِأَمْرِ اللَّهِ وَيَلْجَأُ فِي كُلِّ شَيْءٍ إِلَى اللَّهِ. Then يَسْتَعِينُ بِكُلْ فِي كُلِّ شَيْءٍ فِي كُلِّ حَالٍ بِاللَّهِ. And then he inquire help in all his state and her state from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the complete submission, that when believer comes to this point, is really a great honoring, because the impact of such a thing is to be elevated to a level where someone has a steady tranquility in their heart and inner peace. Why? Because they are fully and closely to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we're going to explain it in 3 steps. But the first steps, we would like, after giving you the evidence that yuqinun is an element of the faith and actually any requirement, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah. So the iqan in the belief of the hereafter is a requirement, is a necessity, is a fard. So that's what let you drive and let you to be, into your life, thinking about making it, thinking about achieving your goal. And look, subhanallah, people, how they hear from other through the way of, khabar, how, successful in some business, you're going to make some money, so-and-so, he did this. And then you find a person teaching people how to have all these, tips, how to make monies and so on. And you see people, they have yaqeen, they have certitude, truly. And they work so hard. And they follow this person and the tips of this person, subhanallah, in the minus, subhanallah, details. Why? Because what driving them is this yaqeen. Is this yaqeen that they're gonna make money. But their heart is filled with the love of money. Your heart is filled with the love of Allah and the submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the only thing that will keep you to be driven toward His pleasure is the yaqeen, Now another aspect that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala negated the yaqeen on the disbeliever, which is mean like when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described the disbeliever of the absence of yaqeen, means like to be a believer you have to have yaqeen. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala قال فاصبر إن وعد الله حق. Have patience, indeed the promise of Allah is the promise of the truth, and do not be deluded or not let your firmness be shaken by those who do not have certainty. وَلَا يَسْتَخِفَّنَّكَ الَّذِينَ لَا يُقِنُونَ. So in many ayat Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described the believer by the negation of certainty, that they do not have certainty, meaning that the certainty is a requirement of iman. And the certainty is not, subhanAllah, not the aspect that all of you have heard about and we have been studying or you have studied, the level of the yaqeen, the knowledge of the yaqeen and the eye of the yaqeen and the truth of the yaqeen, ilmul yaqeen wa aynul yaqeen wa haqqul yaqeen. That's not the aspect that we would like to talk about, but the aspect of how to build the yaqeen in steps to help you fulfill this requirement of iman, so you can get the level of a true one who submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because to be shaky in our path, to have doubts, hesitation, and doubts and hesitation that we do not speak out is always inside. That's why we have a salat always distracted. We have a path of life with the dreams not connected with the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of this aspect, because we do not have the yaqeen. Because if someone has the yaqeen, like the person who trying to make money and do study and look them how they engage, how they're driven, those they have the yaqeen. And if you truly have the yaqeen with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you should do at least like those people who subhanAllah dreaming about their dunya, you are dreaming about the ultimate triumph, which is the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the first step, if you know that is a requirement of yaqeen, then you're going to say, Allah help me to have this yaqeen. And yaqeen is the certitude, the certainty of the iman, that you are certain that you're going to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you have an appointment tomorrow, an interview, and it has been already in your calendar, and you get a reminder in your text that you're going to have the meeting tomorrow, then you have yaqeen, then you're going to be ready for it, you're going to prepare for it, and you're going to be prepared even the attire that you're going to wear and everything. So this is when you have the yaqeen to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what attire that you're going to have meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The greatest of the attire is your state of your heart. So how is your heart? Did you ask such a thing? But let's go, through the steps of how to build the yaqeen. The first step, dear brother, respected sister, is at the Ahlul Ilmi يقولون سكون القلب لخبر المخبر. سكون القلب is the stillness of the heart toward what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has conveyed you as a message. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, I am the Lord, there is no God except me. He said, Alhamdulillah. Sukun al-qalb, which is the stillness of the heart. The heart to be pleased, embracing it, adhere to it, and submitting to it. That's sukun al-qalb. Sukun al-qalb here, the stillness of the heart, it does not shake with argument, with dispute to the question, because what follows, that is going to be the test. What follows is, this is haram and this is halal. So a person who used to love such a thing, you say, why it's haram? Then that's, the heart is not in a state of stillness. Why? Because he's questioning. That's subhanAllah, that what to reduce the drive and reduce the yaqeen. Because the yaqeen, if you truly believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is the one who is the most merciful, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He does not need you at all, because He's al-Ghani al-Hamid, and whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing for you is to shower you with His mercy, despite the fact that you might see what is happening to you is very negative, is something that is hurtful, but your yaqeen make it to be seen as the rahmah of Allah. Why? Because Allah is the most merciful. Therefore, sukunul qalbi li khabar al-mukhbari, whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala convey to us in the Quran through His messenger, you have to embrace this, and you have your heart to be like still to it, like in stillness, in full pleasure, in adhering it, in embracing it. And this is subhanAllah the difference between the believer and the munafiq, the one who has disease in their heart. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in the expedition of Tabuk in Surah At-Tawbah, He said, the believers, they will not ask you the permission, of exemption or to stay behind. Why? Because they are a believer. They do not ask you such a thing, a permission to stay behind, to not and to go with you, to strive with their life, with their wealth. They don't ask you the permission. They're already next to you. They're already next to you. Who the one who asks you permission? قال سبحان الله إنما يستأذنك الذين لا يؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر. They do not truly believe in Allah and in the hereafter. قال وارتابت قلوبهم. They have doubt in their heart. فهم في ريبهم يترددون. So subhanallah, they are seeking into this doubt, hesitating, not knowing what to do. And this is an aspect. How many of us have hesitation towards some of worship? How hesitation towards, subhanallah, a project that helped them to get close to Allah. This for those people who think about it. There are people who do not even think about such a thing. And the three that they didn't join the Prophet ﷺ from the true companion and the good hearts and authentic hearts, they didn't join because they have been clinging heavily to this life, subhanallah, not out of maybe laziness, out of feeling or preferring the restness and being like quiet and calm in their home, rather than to go with the Prophet ﷺ and fight. And they regret. For these people, subhanallah, they have clear and clean heart. It took them 50 days for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept their repentance. So imagine the people who have doubt in their heart and you don't want to rush and march in the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you can make analogy on our daily life, that you see you can discover. And the best thing in our journey is to be sincere with yourself, because if you discover doubt in you, it does not mean that you are bad, that you have some, subhanallah, things inside need to be clean. It's like when you leave your house without being visited for a while, you have to come back and clean it and so on. Does not mean the house is bad or something that you need to throw away. That's how, subhanallah, the state of our soul. When you revisit your soul and you find all this illness, you find doubt, you find that you've been a long time that you didn't ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for dua. Why? Because there is nothing into your plan that you like from this dunya, and then you discover that you only come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for your dunya, not in your relation of Allah. And this is what is caused in the beginning for such a thing, like cast these seeds of the doubt into the heart, as we are explaining. And this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called these people, they ask you the permission for exemption and to stay behind because of the state of their heart. They do not have yaqeen. If truly they have belief, when you talk about the belief, is yaqeen. Because belief, like believing in existence of Allah does not mean that you are a believer at all. What makes you believer is to rush and run and go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in worship and in devotion. And this is how someone calibrating his movement into the life, as has been mentioned. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about the rizq, He didn't say run to the rizq. He said walk to the rizq. وَالَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُمُ الْأَرْضَ ذَلُولًا فَامْشُوا فِي مَنَاكِبِهَا. Walk around the earth and seeking from the rizq of Allah. When it comes to the salah, the movement is different, because you go into something greater. قَالَ فَاسْعَوْا إِلَى ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. When it's called the call of the day of the Friday, فَاسْعَوْا, hasten to go to the remembrance of Allah. And the highest movement in one's life, which is these movements are done with one's heart, is to Allah. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking about His greatness, قَالَ فَفِرُّوا إِلَى اللَّهِ, flee to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you see, when a person, start by the yaqeen, by subhanallah, checking their heart to have stillness and full pleasure and full embracing of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained us. This is what is going to lead you to complete submission, and to have, subhanallah, embracing all what had happened to you from the destiny as a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, despite the fact they might be negative. Why? Because you have yaqeen, you have certainty that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only want from you or want for you only good thing. The second aspect is what is going to help you to settle this yaqeen into your heart and increase it and have it stronger, which is your reflection, which is the problem. As an aspect in our ummah, there is no such thing called reflection. People, they do not reflect. People, they do not ponder. when if you look closely at the path of the Prophet ﷺ in his guidance, you can, as we have mentioned before, you can divide it in three categories: the category of action, the category of akhlaq, and the third category of reflection, of pondering. For this reason, the Prophet ﷺ قال al-waylu is a type of threatening for those who read the ayat in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creation and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala af'al are mentioned, and the person will read them without contemplating and without reflecting. So the second aspect is to have the yaqeen getting deeper and be stronger in our heart, is to reflect and to look at the evidence that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put for you to increase your yaqeen into what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, which are these ayat, are the signs of this creation and the signs of the universe. Just subhanAllah, think about it. If there is anyone or any book addressing to the humankind say, I created this, no one say, I created this. No one in any book except in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Al-Quran, he said, I send down rain to you. He said, subhanAllah, I will have, subhanAllah, قَالَ أَخْرَجْنَا, will make, subhanAllah, to rise or plant, vegetation for you. We have subjected the sea for you. We have even subjected the orbiting of the sun and the moon for you. Can you imagine? If there is anyone who can say such a thing, well, if we do not reflect on such a thing to increase our yaqeen, this is how you build the relation with Allah. He's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling you this day and night is for you, to help you sleep and to help you have, your time and so on. So this reflection, it increases your yaqeen because it's going to elevate you to the level where you're going to be close to Allah, and you see all the miracles around you are a sign. When you see, subhanAllah, the changing of the season, it is a sign of our resurrection. The plant that it grows in the spring, this is how you're going to grow in the land of resurrection. And Allah told you that. Have you read it? قَالَ كَذَلِكَ تُخْرَجُونَ. This is the way how you're going to come out from the ground. And your soul, subhanAllah, will be coming to dwell into this body that has been, subhanAllah, replanted again from the earth. Because we are from the earth, and to earth we come back. And look at any grave after years, it turns into dust, which is mean that we came from dust. And all of those are, subhanAllah, the element, the evidence for you to increase the yaqeen. But most of the people are blinded toward this evidence. We are reading them and whole, subhanAllah, the universe of around us, and all of the people that are plugged to their headphones or plugged to their phone, and they are in the universe, distracted them, killing their heart, inducing blindness in us. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calling you all around, just look around you. Just look around you. And this is, subhanAllah, our evidence. And one of the dalalat, subhanAllah, one of the strong dalalat into, reflecting in such ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Ra'd, قال وسخر الشمس والقمر, He had subjected to you the orbiting of the sun and the moon. قال يدبر الأمر يفصل الآيات. He governs, subhanahu wa ta'ala, the order of the universe, and He make detail for you all these signs for you to understand, for you to come close to Him, for you to see all these great signs, subhanallah. So you increase your yaqeen. And look in the ayah, قَالَ لَعَلَّكُمْ بِلِقَاءِ رَبِّكُمْ تُوقِنُونَ, that you may be certain of meeting of your Lord. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling you, look around you as an evidence to help you increase your yaqeen in meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of these dalalat, instruction, that we can derive from this ayah, when you look, subhanAllah, the orbiting of the sun and the moon, what is the meaning of it when you reflect? This is the time of this lifetime. This is reflecting the time, zaman al-dunya, the time of the life of this worldly life, which is mean the life of this is the segment of time reflecting the test that all humankind are enduring. But you are different when you read this ayah. You're not going to live the time of this dunya. You're going to transcend yourself. You're not going to be limited by the time. You're not going to be people like the love is dunya, always running to catch time. And they are managing time to try to find gaps in the time to hold it so that you not age, to make more money. And if one of them wish to have 1,000 years of life, he can have it, but he's not going to remove him from the doom of the hellfire. But you believer, when you look at this ayat, you transcend yourself to the point that you do not live the time of the dunya, because you're going to be connected with meeting Allah. Your certainty of meeting Allah make the time that you live in absolute time, is in eternity, then for your life does not, subhanAllah, computed by the numbers of days and months and years, but computed by the barakah, by the blessing. If you just reflect, subhanAllah, you live a long life, even you just lived, someone lived 30 years or 40 years or 50 years or 60 years or more, you lived like, subhanAllah, years and years. Laylatul Qadr, if you, subhanAllah, stand it, you had add to your life 80 years of barakah. And the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, the Prophet ﷺ said, called the best of ayyam of the whole dunya. So how much he'll multiply for you. And every sadaqah you do, and every hasanah you do, and every prayer you do when you go to the haram and so on, how multiplied all these prayers. So you live a life, maybe when you compute it in the Day of Judgment, you find yourself like you lived like thousands of years, but in the time of the absolute time. And this is from the ayat, if you just reflect on the ayat. The third, step to make it, inshallah, short, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, but may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us benefit of the reminder. The third, when you elevate yourself in yaqeen, you become serious, subhanAllah, because the liqa of Allah, the standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it becomes like clear for you. When it becomes clear and something that is in your heart, then all your life is going to change. That's the yaqeen, that's the iman. What you live for, when you're going to die, you're going to sleep, you're going to die. And if you wake up on the Day of Judgment, you're going to be meeting Allah. So meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not something far. If you live 1,000 years, when you come to the Day of Judgment, when you look back at your life, is going to be like, seems like a day or a half a day. كم لبثنا في الأرض عدد السنين قال لبثتم يوما أو بعض يوم فاسأل العادين. You have stayed in the whole dunya, day or a half of a day. So subhanAllah, this is the absolute time that you live in this dunya, and not the computed time of the life of the earth, of the universe. This is what helps you find out from the pondering in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we have mentioned. So the third step, when you keep in, subhanAllah, helping yourself, increasing your yaqeen, you're going to come to the point of mushahada. What is mushahada? Whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told you to your heart, you're going to be, subhanAllah, seen to you as you see it, believe in it as you see it with your eyes. You see it with your eyes. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking about the Jannah, you see the Jannah, you truly see the Jannah, Allah describe it for you. Okay, you imagine it according to the aspect that we have today. And hellfire, subhanAllah. Wallahi, if you read the ayat of hellfire, truly and profoundly, you cannot sleep the night. You cannot sleep the night. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us, alhamdulillah, that type of safety, of security, to really manage of our life. But does not mean that you're going to turn away and do not read them. That's when you're going to lose that aspect of yaqeen that you need to have as a requirement of your iman. So when you come to this level, dear brother, respected sister, this is the level that when you're going to taste the true sweetness of the iman, this is how you're going to feel close to Allah truly. This is how you're going to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with your heart. This is when the meeting of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala becomes the highest priority in all your entire existence. For this reason, the believer, they were like this. When Haritha came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he said, how are you doing this morning, ya Haritha? Haritha said, today, ya Rasulullah, I'm starting the day, my day, as a true believer, مؤمن حقا. قال لكل حق قول حق فما حقيقة إيمانك. For every statement has its truth. What is the truth or the reality of what you're saying? قال يا رسول الله, I have made myself to be away from this worldly life. I mean my heart to be removed from this worldly life. فأضمأت يومي وأسهرت ليلي. I make myself fasting, and then I multiply the qiyamul layl in the night. And I'm seeing today, Ya Rasulullah, قال وكأني أنظر إلى عرش ربي بارزا. It's like I can see today, Ya Rasulullah, with my iman. It's like I see the throne of my Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala standing in front of my eyes. I can see it like in the Day of Judgment. And I can see, it's like I'm seeing the people of paradise, they are congratulating themselves. And I can see the people of hellfire, how subhanallah they are screaming in it. Seeing, he didn't see, believe. And this is the yaqeen. The Prophet ﷺ said, قَالَ عَرَفْتَ, this is the true knowledge. فَلْزَمْ, be perseverant on such a thing. And then in the other riwayah, قَالَ رَجُلٌ, or a believer that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enlighten his heart with the true belief. So the true belief is this certainty. So we cannot, subhanallah, in our journey of life, be lazy be a people, subhanAllah, who choose to be like, do everything that everybody else to do. And then when it comes to the deen, we do the little bit and we want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept us to Jannah. No, you have to do everything for Allah. That's how you're going to find your happiness. Because the true joyful life that Allah promised you only comes with the yaqeen. Because with the yaqeen, you're going to have the power of patience. With the yaqeen, you're going to have the gift of a strong willpower. With the yaqeen, you're going to have the tranquility to dwell into your heart forever till you meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على النبي المصطفى أما بعد. If a believer truly sincere and traveling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala seeking to make their journey safe, should be their focus on increasing the yaqeen. And the yaqeen is how closely and closely getting the heart to have that state of stillness, which is means stillness. Anything that crosses your mind is not going to bother you because you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who causes harm and is the one who brings benefit. And when you have this yaqeen, subhanallah, not only your life change, but you're going to truly fulfill, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fulfill for you the ahd, the promise of that true joyful life. And then when you have the joyful life, you understand the meaning of it, because no one truly can define it as long as someone didn't taste it yet. And the journey of yaqeen, it's not only for the believers, and it continues as a journey of life. Look at Ibrahim alayhi salam. One of the things, subhanAllah, that he's asked, imagine like Ibrahim alayhi salam, the friend of Allah, had the opportunity to talk to Allah, what he had asked him. If you have the opportunity to talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we are talking our dua, but we have the certainty that Allah is listening to you, what dua are you going to make? Now Ibrahim alayhi salam, he has received the revelation, saying, asking Allah, and Allah answered him. What he had answered, he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a question seeking to increase yaqeen. Because that's the most beautiful and powerful and profound and helpful thing in the journey. He said, yeah Allah, show me how you bring dead things to life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, have you not believed? For us, for Ibrahim to get his intention, قَالَ لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي, to have more comfort in my heart, that is increase of yaqeen. That's why one of the gifts that Allah gave to Ibrahim, قَالَ وَكَذَلِكَ نُرِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ مَلَكُوتَ السَّمَاوَاتِ, we showed to Ibrahim the kingdom of the heaven of the earth to be one of the muqinin. And the Prophet ﷺ, in his ascension to the beyond the seventh heaven, it was a journey of increasing the yaqeen, because the Prophet coming back after the journey, he was not like before he went. In the beginning, the Prophet ﷺ, Allah taught him, he said, I don't know what Allah is going to do with me, or with you. I'm only a warner. But after having the yaqeen and after having the journey, after ascending in the level of the worship to become the best of the whole creation, he said, I am the master of all the children of Adam. And I'm not saying it as boasting, it is a reality. Now, knowing that this journey of yaqeen, it is necessary for everyone, and it is as those who are our, subhanAllah, light of guidance, the Prophet ﷺ and all the messengers, the believer has to do that. Because it's going to give you two great aspects, two great gifts. That when you have this yaqeen, you know that the promise of Allah is the truth. Whatever Allah has promised, He promised you rizq, provision is going to come. You're going to be comforted with that. Allah promised you empowerment, He's going to give you. Allah promised you victory, He's going to give it to you. Today or tomorrow or after, subhanAllah, 100 years, but you are comforted. The most important is not the achievement of what Allah promised you, but the comfort of your heart, because you know that it's going to happen regardless if you are alive or not. And the second thing is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the yaqeen, He filled, subhanAllah, He filled your heart with peace and tranquility and sakinah. And that is the beautiful, great reward of the yaqeen. And ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bestow upon us the gift of the yaqeen and make us to understand that it is necessary for the path and not an option. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to strive in gaining the yaqeen and gaining the certitude of meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. اللهم ارزقنا اليقين يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم اقذف في قلوبنا رجاءك وقطع رجاءنا عمن سواك حتى لا نرجو أحدا غيرك. اللهم لك أسلمنا وبك أمنا وعليك توكلنا فاغفر لنا ما قدمنا وما أخرنا وما أسررنا وما أعلنا. اللهم يا رب العالمين ويا رب الأكوان أجمعين، اللهم أغث إخواننا في غزة، اللهم أغث إخواننا في غزة، اللهم آمن روعاتهم، اللهم استر عوراتهم، اللهم سد جوعتهم، اللهم سد جوعتهم، اللهم ارحمهم برحمتك واحفظهم بحفظك، اللهم أفرغ عليهم صبرا وأنزل عليهم السكينة يا رب العالمين، وانصرهم على الأعداء يا رب العالمين. اللهم دمر الظالمين المعتدين وأعوانهم، إنك على كل شيء قدير وبالإجابة جدير. نعم المولى ونعم النصير. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأقم الصلاة يرحمكم الله.